Hey, all right. Welcome back, everyone. So let's review this, what's happening here, right? So the best way to understand what's happening is to just take this, put it into a regular HTML file, save it, and then run it. Well, if we just run it, nothing happens. We need to put a debugger. So let's put a debugger. This is called a breakpoint, right? This is where our code will stop or break in our debugger. So I open up DevTools, I refresh, and here we go. Let's zoom in a bit. Hang on. Okay. Can the people in the back see this code here? Yes? Okay. So here's what happens. First, we create a function and we name it f. Then we run f with two arguments. What are the arguments? What's the input to f? 45 and the function. This is the first argument, comma. This is the second argument. Therefore, a becomes this, f becomes this. Let's see. Let's step into the call to f, and let's see what happens. So a is 45, and f is the function we just described down here. Now, some of you might notice that I gave the same name here and here, but remember how scoping works. When we see f here, what do? We check the block, and we say, is there an f locally? There is, it's right there. There's a local f. Therefore, it uses this. It doesn't go up. Okay, so it uses this function, and it calls it with this argument. So let's go inside. Okay, here we go. So now we passed 45 here. 45 times 2 is 90. We return that, and then here we return the result, which is 45. Right, so this gets replaced with 45, and we return that, and now D is 90, and then when we console log it, we come here, it's 90. Sorry, did I say 45? Sorry, the result gets replaced with 90, and then that gets returned as 90. Was that clear? Yes. Again? Sure, no problem. So let's do this again. We just refresh the browser, and here we go. Okay, so we create the function, we call the function, we step inside. A is now 45, f is this function I passed. Այդքանը բարձր, okay? Այդ տարված ֆունկցիան կանչում ենք a-ով, այսինքն 45-ով, չէ՞? Մտանք մեջը։ Այդ արժեքը, որ մենք պաստվեցինք, այդ 45-ը անգամ 2։ Վերադարձավ։ Այսինքն հիմա այս սրա արդյունքը 90-ը, չէ՞? Ինքը return արի, 45 անգամ 2, 90։ Հետո սա փաստորեն return անում 90։ Այսինքն այս ամբողջի return արածը 90։ Այսինքն d մեջ 90-ը, ընտրեմ, d մեջ 90-ը, console-ը ենք անում, տեսնում ենք, որ 90-ը։ F-ը, չէ, եթե F-ը console-ը կանենք, դա function։ F-ը function-ը, F կանչելուց կստանանք ինչ-որ return անում։ You guys get that? So? Questions on this? Okay, next topic. There was a question regarding this, I posed an exercise, this exercise here. I posted this on Facebook. Let me explain what's happening. It's actually very simple. We create two elements in our HTML, okay? We create a text box. The way to do that in HTML is you say input type text, okay? This is what you need in order to create one of these, all right? That's just basic HTML. If you don't know it, go back and relearn HTML. Then we give it an ID, an identifier, and we give it some sort of a string to identify it. My input, whatever. Then we create another element called span. Again, we give that an ID. A span is just a container. That's all it is. Okay? Then here's where we say script tag, and here's where we're going to write our code. What does our code do? Well, the first thing it does is it says document, which remember is this global object that's available to us that allows us to talk to the HTML, to talk to key called getElementById. We call it, which implies that getElementById refers to a function, right? We call this function with a string, the ID of the thing we want back, okay? So we do document getElementById, my input, and what we get back is a reference to that object, a reference to this element here. So input L literally refers to this thing. And we can make changes to it, we can add event listeners to it, we can do lots of different cool things. For example, here I can set the input, the initial input. I can say input L.value should be high. Boom, high, you see? So I can make changes to this object, and what will happen is that will get reflected in the HTML, in the DOM. Okay? Conceptually, yes?
Kan je nog eens debuggen doen?
You have to. Okay, so let's do this. Copy that, put it into a separate file, save, cancel, debugger here, debugger, save, and we go back here, open DevTools, and refresh. Okay, so we come here, so document is this big object with lots of different, see all of these things on it? These are all attributes, or keys, and key value, right? And this is a function. And when I call it, it returns to me this object, which has a whole bunch of attributes, as you can see. You don't have to memorize them, don't worry. But the point is, if I change the value, which right now is an empty string, it's going to now be high. Okay? So the rest of it, I don't need a debugger to explain to you, so hang on. Okay, so what does this line here do? Well, so input L is a reference to this element, right? It has another function attached to it called addEventListener. addEventListener. It's a function. And as you can see, it takes two arguments. We just saw an example of a function that takes two values. Remember, a number and a function? We passed 45 and a function. Remember that? Same thing here, except here, instead of 45, we're passing in a string called keyUp. And then a function. That's demek. Երկու argument է keyUp եւ function. Ու ինչ է սա ասում? Ասում է input John. John-ով եք խոսում. Երբ որ keyUp լինի, կանչի այս տրված function. Okay? What it's saying is, whenever keyUp happens, whatever keyUp is, we'll talk about what that means later, but when that happens, run this function, execute this function. That's what this says. Now key up, so the keyboard has the keys. Whenever you go up, it's going to fire and call your function. So look, let's forget this stuff for now, and let's just do console.log. e.target.value. Yeah. So now, if I start writing, boom, 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 look, I pressed the key down, nothing happened. Pick it up, see, it happened. Look, let me run it again, just so you guys can see. Okay, look, I pressed the key down. See, D happened. Nothing happened. On key up, it happened. Yes? That's why it says key up. If I did key down, now the moment it goes down, it happened. Whoa. It happened because I held it down, so it went down. Okay. Okay, so let's not do key down, let's do key up. So now every time I press, it's going to console log. Press console log, press console log, press console log. Now instead of console log, let's do something else. Let's go back. Instead of console log, let's instead get a reference to another element by doing getElementById, and this time we'll get a reference to the span. And now let's set the inner HTML of the span to the value that we get from this element. Sorry, from this one. Input-ը text box-ն է, չէ? Այս input-ի արժեքն ենք նոր վերցնում ու վերագրում ենք inner HTML-ի այս span. Պատկերացրեցի՞ք։ Այսինքն you guys get it? No? Oh my god, okay. Alright. Okay. reference to the input element, and I initially set the value to high. Let's get rid of this part. Այսքանը բարձ, huh? Who doesn't understand what's happening here? Just be honest. Okay, no problem. Do you understand what's happening in this first line? Okay, you do, right? We're saying Dom, go and get the element that has the ID with this string. So that's this one, so that's this guy. Yes? It returns to me an object. Okay, so input L is an object. If I set the value on it, the HTML will automatically render that change. That's just magic. It just happens. It's kind of awesome. Okay, so we understand these two lines now, yes? Okay, now, what happens here? Let's get rid of this to avoid confusion. There's a function attached to this object, this input object, called addEventListener. It allows you to add event listeners. What is an event listener? All an event listener is you give it a function and you say when that event happens, call this function. Երբ որ այս ինչը պատահում է, այս ֆունկցիան կանչի։ Այդքան բան։ Օրինակ եմ ձեզ ասում, ձեզ տալիս եմ ֆունկցիա։
Define function է ինքը ինչ որ։
Ինչա՞։ Այս function-ը, ասա, որտեղ կանչում եմ իրան։ Իրան տալիս եմ երկու արգումենտ։
Այսինքն մենք չենք իրան define արել, ինքը
Չէ, ինքը մեջն է, ինքը։
Ոնց որ get element by ID։
Ինքը DOM API-ի մասն է։ Իրան հիմա ասում եմ, երբ որ սա պատահի, սա կանչի։
Պայմանական բան է։
Հա։ Երբ որ սա պատահի, սա կանչի։ Բարձա։ Հաջա։
Իսկ երբ մենք արանք պատճառտանք if-ին, ոնց որ հարյուրներում դնենք։ Որ ասենք հենց ոնց որ event կարա if-ի հետ արժի։
Օրինակ ստեղ կարող ենք if դնենք, այսինքն ստանանք key-up-ի ժամանակ, հետո
if-ը ստուգի key-up կա թե չէ։ Կնոպեն բարձրացրեք թե չէ if-ը կարա տենց բան անի թե չէ։
Բայց okay, բայց ոնց է իմանալու է դա թե չէ։
Այդ է մեջը դու դու։
Չէ, պետք է event listener-ը ավելացնես, որպեսզի այդ event-ը ստանաս, հետո react-ս։ It's reactive, հասկանում ես։ Ես չգիտեմ դու երբ ես ինչ որ օրինակ։ Ես քեզ ասում եմ ինձ երբ որ հասնես ամերիկյան համալսարան ինձ զանգի։ Ես միջև դու ինձ չզանգես, ես չգիտեմ դու դե հասել ես, չէ։ Այ որ զանգես ինձ իմաց տաս, այդ ժամանակ կարող եմ որոշում տամ, թե ինչ եմ անելու որպես հետևանք, չէ՞ դրա։ Նույն բանը ստեղ է, ասում եմ, երբ որ key-up լինի, ինձ զանգի։ Այս ինձ զանգին այդ ֆունկցիան։ Okay? Call this function when this happens։ Այդքանը բարձ է, զուտ այդքանը։ Okay, հիմա ասում եմ, երբ որ դա պատահի, եկեք մի հատ ուրիշ element-ի հղում ստանանք։ Get element by ID target, այսինքն այս span-ն ենք ստանում ու գցում ենք ստեղ։ Մոռացեք այս կոդի մասին։ Այս տողը բարձր չէ։ Բարձր չէ։ Okay, հիմա նույնպես ինչպես որ մենք անում ենք input element.value հավասարը high, որը գրում է արժեքը, եթե մենք ուղղակի ասենք input l.value, կարդում է արժեքը։ Բարձր։ Okay, այսինքն ստեղ մենք կարդում ենք արժեքը եւ վերագրում ենք դա այս նոր element-ի inner HTML-ի մեջ։ Այսինքն ամեն անգամ key-up հեսավոր լինի, ես ինձ զանգ կգա, կասի key-up-ը եղել է, ես կասեմ եղել է, okay, նոր արժեքը վերցնեմ, կոպի անեմ inner HTML։ Կոպի անեցի։ Սխմեցի, հեսա key-up կրնի, ինձ զանգ կգա։ Զանգը եկավ ու գրեցի։ Սխմեցի, key-up եղավ, զանգը եկավ, գրեցի։
Այդ սխմածը բամուխին ու դարաճի գրում։
Չգիտեմ։ That's it. Step that's it. That's it. Check. Step it. Chigga. Yes. That's it. Hima Barza. Cool. Okay. So now let's do something actually fun. Something that I think you guys will enjoy because it has some practical implications. I'm going to show you something. Don't get scared. This is not scary. It's actually very basic and very simple, so just bear with me for a second, and I will explain to you what's happening. Okay, I just zoomed out so you guys can see that this is just a long string. I will zoom in one moment, but okay, let me zoom in. Now, what do you think this is? Yeah, but this part is just an object, because notice there's a dot. So there's an object called $. Okay? Yeah, you're right, it's a library, but don't worry about it. Yeah, so there's an object that has been created by someone. It's a library called jQuery, don't worry, no one cares. There's an object that has attached to it a key called getJSON. It's a function which we can call. And when we call it, we can pass arguments, right? We know this, no problem. Let's see the arguments that we're passing in. The first argument is this long string. HTTP, blah, 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 flickr.com, services, feeds, photo, public, blah, blah, blah. All of this is just one long string, and it's the first argument to get JSON. Okay? It's a URL, you might notice, hostile, right? So the first argument to get JSON is the URL, the address. The second argument, what happens if I just do this? It's an object, which has the following attributes. Tags, which we call USA. In fact, let's change this to Yerevan. So tags, Yerevan, tag mode, any, and format JSON. Again, these are just key value pairs, right? We know what an object is, right? It's just a bunch of key value pairs. And then comma, and there's a third argument called function, which takes back data, whatever that is, and we put a breakpoint inside. Is it clear what's happening? Not what it does, but just the fact that there's an object, it has a function attached to it called getJSON. We're calling it with three arguments. This string, this object, here, let me bring this here. This object, and this function. Text, object, function. Baza, text հասցենա, object-ը ինչ-որ այս object-ն է, այս բանն է, երկրորդը object-ը, որը լիքը սենց բան, հետո կհասկանանք ես ինչ է, եւ երրորդը ֆունկցիա է։ Baza, հիմա բացատրեմ data. What does getJSON do? Imagine I asked one of you guys to please go to the engineering office, get a pencil, and come back. When you come back, I want you to call me. You guys get that scenario? Please go get the pencil. I give you all the information you need to go get the pencil. I give you the address of where to go get the pencil. I tell you some information about like the color, like the size of the pencil, who you need to talk to when you get there. Just some basic info you'll need to get the pencil. And then I give you information to use to call me back when you get the pencil. Analogy, okay? So what this actually does is it goes and gets, well, I don't know what. Let's just find out what. Let's copy all this and put it into our regular file. There it is. Save it. Let's go here, test, and let's run it. Ooh, right. I can't do it because I don't have jQuery there. Wait, hang on 1 second. You know what? Come on, work. Come on. You know what? Let's debug it out. Yes, it worked. Okay. So, we are in this function that we gave as the third argument, inside of it. Okay? So, zange ekela. Matite ekela. Okay? Let's see what we got back. Let's mouse over data. Okay. So data is an object, as you can tell, which has a bunch of information inside. It has a description, generator, I don't know what that is, link, modified, title. Oh, the title is recent upload tagged Yerevan. It has this thing called items, which when you open, notice it's an array with a bunch of values in it. When you open each one, it has some information, like who the author is, a description, some tags, a title, and a thing called media with M referencing some URL. This is information. So now let me explain what I did. What we did is we called Flickr. You guys know Flickr? Do you guys still use that? It's a well-known web application that hosts images. We called it and we said, hey Flickr, give me back some pictures that are tagged with the word Yerevan. Okay? And what it gave me back is this object that says, here's a bunch of information, and by the way, the items you wanted are these. It gave me back 20 items. And here are the items, and for each item it gave me some information. Who uploaded the picture, you know, the title of the picture, that would be the title maybe, etc. As well as, in media, I get this M property, which gives me a URL to the actual picture. So if I copy this, and I open it in a separate thing, that's the picture. That's one of the pictures that came back. Okay? We'll see the rest soon. Okay, cool. So we have this data object that has these items. Cool. Why don't we draw these items on the screen? Right? It would be cool. Think about what we're doing, right? We're calling Flickr. We're saying, give me things having to do with Yerevan, pictures. It gives me back a bunch of pictures, and I'm going to draw them on the screen. Kind of cool, right? All right, let's do it. So the first thing we have is, well, we need access to this items array because this is what contains objects that then contain a media that contains an M. You guys see how now why in the quiz I had you guys do this long like dot, 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 dot. Now you know why. This is an actual example, right? So let's do this. So let's say in data I want to loop over every item. How do we loop over items? While. Okay, cool. So, let's do it. So while, so let I be 0. While I is less than, let me break this before I get an infinite loop. While is less than data.items.length. Items will give me back the array, right? Items.length. And then here I need to change I to avoid being an infinite loop. I plus 1. Okay. So we've created the loop to loop over every item that Flickr gives me. Yes? 9. Այս կոդը նենց եմ գրել, այս ինչ-որ տեսնում եք, այս editor-ը, որ ես key up-ի ժամանակ, հիշում եք on key up, հիշում եք այդ, key up-ի ժամանակ կոդս աշխատացնում եմ։ Հիմա, այն պահը, որ ես այդ while-ը գրեմ, փագեմ ու փագեմ, ինքը կաշխատի։ Ու կծխի browser-ը, որտեղ ինfinite loop-ը ստեղծի։ Դրա համար, որպես ինքը չաշխատի, ես յան comment եմ անում, գրում եմ, հետո նոր հետ եմ բերում, որ չծխի են, հասկացար չէ։ By the way, now you know how this works. You know how I wrote it. I added an onKeyUp event, which you know how to do now, right? Attach event listener on key up. Ու function բանի ժամանակ, ես նկարում եմ այդ console loggerը էկրանի վրա։ That's him սա գրել։ Okay, don't worry about it.
So, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
It automatically converts the JSON file into a JavaScript object.
You're talking about this here?
Like when we request to the server.
That's why it's called getJSON, because it automatically handles JSON.
Converts.
Yeah. Okay, all right, so what this will do is it will loop over every item. So now let's just console log the item. So console.log, hang on, cons item would be data.items I. Console.log item. Woo! Okay, so here are the 20 objects, right? Not very interesting. So inside the object, what did we have? We had like description and stuff, right? We had title. Didn't each item have a title?
No, yeah.
No, it did. There it is. That's a title now. These are all the titles of all the images I got back, right? So now let's actually draw it. So let's do this. Let's create a div up here. A div, remember, is just a container. So ID is, main, whatever. Let's get a reference to it here. So const L is document.get element by ID main. Okay, great. Now I have access to this L. Now what I want to do is build my HTML so I can set it as the inner HTML of this L. So let's do it. Let HTML be an empty string. So first it's going to be just an empty string. Then what I will do is concatenate to this HTML an image tag, which has a source. And it's a self-closing tag, if I recall. Okay, so in here we want to put the actual link. Okay, so it's item.media.m, right? Item media M. Yeah. Okay, and then, so am I done?
No.
Why am I not done?
Nihat Nikar.
Exactly. This HTML will get built out, you're right, but I have to actually add it to the DOM. So now I have to do l.inner HTML is HTML. Ooh, I see pictures. Okay, that's pretty cool. Okay, all right, very nice. Now, second question.
And retro.
Instead of Yerevan, let's put Boston, where I grew up. Let's see what happens in Boston. Okay, that's not a good representation of Boston. Oh, there we go. That's okay. We're close to the ocean. That's cool. All right. I don't know. What do you guys want to search for? Come on. Huh?
Kamarist is very good. Oh, love it.
There you go. There's.
So good.
Okay. Right? Okay. Cool. So now, instead of modifying code, what if we gave a nice text box where this user could write a search, and then we could, call Flickr and see what we can find. That might be cool. Why don't we write that? So let's write an input box here. How do I create a text box? Do you guys remember? No. Come on. Input type text. This is HTML, people. Go back and learn it. I'm not going to teach you HTML. I refuse to teach you HTML. It's too easy. Okay, and the ID is search. Cool, search box. Yeah. Okay. So now let's get a reference to this guy. By the way, you guys understand how all this works now, right? Okay, so now why don't we put all of this into a reusable function? So let's create a function called const run search. So now if I run search, boom, I get the results. Yes? Okay, now, if I don't run search, nothing happens. Yes? Cool, all right. So now, let's forget about run search for a second, and let's concentrate on this input box. So we need to get a reference to it. So we do document.get element by ID, the ID of that search box. So const search box is that, yes? Now, what I want to do is know when it gets changed. So search box dot, what was it? Add event listener? Well, it said event body. Add event listener. Here we go. This guy. Copy. So add event listener. This time, let's listen for the change event. Makes sense. Whenever not every time the user hits the key, because that's going to be crazy. Imagine going to the Flickr and saying, "Give me A, give me A." Imagine Boston. Give me B. Give me BO. Give me. It's going to be ridiculous, right? It's best that we go to Flickr once the whole thing has been changed. So let's on change event get back the handler. So this is the function that will get called whenever input box changes, and I'll say what change means. And then what I want to do is read the new value. So search box dot value. Now here is where we want to call this function, run search. But let's pass in this value, the search text, in as an argument. So that would be here, search text. And let's pass that here to the tag. Get it? Right? So now, instead of tags being hard-coded to gavar, or kavar, whatever, instead, we're passing in an argument that's going to go here. And that argument is coming from the value of my search box. Now if I type Boston and hit enter, boom, I get Boston. If I change that to Yerevan, hit enter, boom, I get Yerevan. And let me zoom down a bit so you guys can see the full app. There we go, Yerevan. Now let me search for something. What do you want to search for?
Puppies.
What?
Puppies.
Sorry, I'm getting, it's like, one, just here.
Puppies.
Puppies. There you go, puppies. Alright, so cute. Alright, good. Alright, good. So we built like a search thing. You guys built Google. And only this much code. It's amazing. Okay, obviously there's a big database of pictures and there's a lot of code on the Flickr side that we're not seeing, right? When we actually make this call, by the way, let's see what happens when you make the call. Watch this. Let's go to network, clear it out, and now here, let's type in cats. Okay, so lots of things are happening, as you can see, and let's see what's actually happening. So this thing went out. This was my request, right? So we sent our HTTP GET request to this address, flickr.com services feeds, blah, 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 with all this information inside of the URL. Here's the response that we got back. Here's the raw JSON. And here's a nicer way of looking at it. See, we see all this information, the items, each item has a title, a media, and the media has an M. This is all the information that we got back from flickr.com. And then what we did is for each image, the browser downloaded that image. See? These are all the images that are being downloaded, one at a time. Here they are. All these pictures were downloaded by the browser. And downloaded means a request goes to the server saying, give me this picture, the server sends the picture.
But how it sends? Also JSON or which
No,
format?
no, it's raw binary. It's not JSON. No. Even JSON actually underneath is binary in the packet. And then it gets read out into ASCII using as text and then parsed.
Like, but getting images is not part of REST API.
It uses you can actually get an image using HTTP. It is using hypertext transfer protocol. It's still using HTTP. Look. Network docs. See, request is HTTPS, which is just secure HTTP. Blah 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 blah. So it's protocol now, I'll say.
So it sends the files, but not in the. But like REST API has the.
Ja, this head of course, okay, so you guys see how the basics that I taught you are suddenly coming together? It's making sense now? Okay. Who wants me to keep talking about this and who understands what's happening? Okay, who wants more information about how this works? Oh, Jesus, okay. Okay, no problem, no problem. Okay, first let's do just this basic part, okay? Document get element by ID search box. This gets me access to this guy, this object here. And then I do add event listener, and whenever it changes, I know that it has changed. Is that part clear? Menak ayeskan. Ayeskan apart.
Change hence որպես change-ել հասկանում,
Ha, change բանում input box-ում կամ enter ես սակմում կամ focus-ը թողում ես։ Ուրիշներ ես կլիկանում, դա change-ը, trigger-ը։
Իսկ մենք ոնց իմանանք, ոնց որ իր մեջ արդեն այտենց ինչն է ֆիքսած, որ կարողանանք օգտագործենք։ Այսինքն ինքը change-ը հասկանում է, որ չգիտեմ, մի անգամից որ հենց բառի իմաստով հասկանում է, բայց ոնց որ ամեն ինչ չի, որ այտենց գրենք, ինքը հենց այտենց էլ կհասկանա, չէ՞։
Ha, you're saying, how do you know which events are available to you to listen to? Ah, very good question. So you say, you go to Google, and you say input, type text, events. JavaScript events examples. Or events, hang on, event attributes. Wait. JavaScript, what is this? Input, text, events. On input event reference, here we go. Hang on. And here you see, with an event nano. so there's some of them: key down, key up, key press, change event. Change event is related to change files less than blah 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 blah, and there are also some other events. Basically, if you want,
Are they like a few or any?
Yeah, there are a few. There's key down, there's key nayat each. There's for divs, there's like mouse in, mouse out. So you can do when you mouse in and mouse out. Very good. Okay, here's another example. Okay, I will come back to this. I'm not leaving this. I know you guys have questions, but let me just show you one kind of cool thing. Watch this. Let's create a target and let's give it hello world. Let's refer to it here. Let's add an event listener to it. I think that's what it is. Yeah. Okay. Watch this. You see how it says hello world? On mouse enter, what do you think that means? When the mouse enters this element, right? This span. To see it clear, let me do okay. So whenever I enter this span, that's what happens. Yeah? Now let's change, hang on, target L dot. I think this is how it works. I don't, yeah, okay, good. Okay, well watch this. Whenever I enter, how does it?
Isn't it changed?
Okay, now you tell me. How can I make it so that when I enter, it turns red, but when I leave, it goes back to being red?
Mouse leave? Mouse leave.
Okay, so let's guess leave. I actually don't remember what it is, but let's try.
Yay.
What? Wow. CSS. It's style. Style is CSS. Garvey class of it. That's name.
But switch over to get over down.
There's hover on mouse. There might be. I don't know. I have to check. But hover. Remember, you only get one event. Hover on the top event. That's just on it. Okay. Anyway, you can do what you want by mouse enter, mouse leave. Okay. Good. So the only thing that you guys may not know is the fact that you can change this. This is new to you, right? The fact that you can change the style of an element like this. By the way, I'm not going to quiz you on this. This is not the point. Don't worry. I don't want you to. I'm just making the point that, do you understand this much? That you say add event listener, the name of the event. Again, you can find the events on Google. Just Google it. I'm not going to make you memorize events. Don't worry. You can find the event. Give it a callback function. The callback function is the function that will get called when the event happens. Therefore, salini sakanchu. Therefore, mouse leave alinuma sayakanchu. I hima. Therefore, mouse enter alinum sayakanchu. I hima. Mouse leave, mouse enter. Mouse leave, mouse enter. It kind of pauses, right? Okay. So now let's go back to the other example, which I know is a bit more robust. Okay, so these two lines should be obvious to you now, right? We get a reference to this search box, and then we add an event listener, change, and here's the callback function. So whenever change happens, call this function. Et cada pausa? Cool, okay. Then whenever that happens, we're going to call run search and pass to it searchbox.value. Remember, .value of an input will give you its value. Et kana pausa? search box s մեկ ենք ստեղծում։ Ինքն է հասկանում, հա, ինքը գիտի, ինքը, նայ, անունը ինչա, դու գիտես, չէ՞, անունը ինչա, so, դու get անուն, կստանամ արժեքը, input box-ը ունի իր value, ինչա, okay, ուղղակի գիտի, դու հարցրու, ինքը կտա, Arza, search box that value will give you the value of the search box, the text that is inside of the search box, Arza, չէ? Okay, then we pass that as an argument to this function, which we're going to call. See? We're calling it, and here we're passing it in as an argument. Okay, now we go to run search. Let's delete all this and just console.log the search. Հիմա ամեն անգամ ինչ որ բան եմ գրում enter եմ սխմում, change. Տպեցինք. Էլի search եմ անում, change. Տպեցինք. Էլի եմ search անում, change. Տպեցինք. I want to search for a dog. I want to search for a cat. Is this code obvious to you? Any questions about how this works? This is clear. Yes? Okay. Now let's put the search code back. What does this do? Imagine if instead of search we were doing dog. What are we saying? We're saying some object, which comes from a library called jQuery, don't worry. GetJSON is a function attached to this object, so object.getJSON. And we pass to this 3 arguments. This string, this object, and this function. Երեքատ input աստանում, function, այս getJSON-ը, այս տեքստը, այս object-ը, ու այս function-ը։ Այս տեքստը ասում է ուր գնա, այս ինֆորմացիա, զուտ, որը պասատրվում server-ին, որի իմանա ինչ պետք է անի, ու սա այն function-ը, որը կկանչվի, երբ որ այս ամբողջ գործողությունը ավարտվի։ Clear? Okay. We all know what an object is, no point in explaining. We all know what a string is, no point in explaining that. So here we have a function that takes an input. What is that input? Well, that input is the object that has been sent back to us by the server. Okay? Now, that object has items attached to it. What is the value of items? What is items? It's an array, exactly. It's a string. It's a list of objects containing information about the things from which we queried for, the things from which we were requesting from the server. Yeah? So it's information about the pictures. So now all I'm saying is, instead of just always querying for dog, always asking the server for dog, instead, why don't we get that value from this variable that has been passed to us? The value that is actually read out from the input box. If I did this, what would happen? Here, if I did... dog.
Cat
Search text.
Right? That's one. Okay. If I search for dog, I still get a cat. Why am I getting a cat? This is why, because I'm always getting a cat. Now, if I... Wait. Okay, one second. One second. Okay. Now, the value is going to come from the search box. So whatever I type here, now if I type dog, I'm going to get dogs. Some of these pictures don't make any sense, but whatever. Okay. 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 If we didn't, without this, let's take this out. Es kann parsa. Zut es kann. Ha? Այսինքն հիմա նկարելու մասին. Let's create another function. Sorry. Okay. What am I doing here? data?
From
When you go to Facebook, where do you get your data? Exactly. Where do you think I'm getting the data?
we request
You make a request. This is what I was showing you. Look, when you know that. Let's search for dog. Dog. You see this request here? Request URL, blah blah, with all this information. You see that, right? That's what goes. If I copy this and paste it here, this is what I get back from the server. This is the JSON. See, these are the items. See items. Or hang on, let me zoom in. Sorry. Actually, let me do this. Okay. You see items? It's an array of this object, which starts here, ends here. And it has in it a title, blah, 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 blah. It also has, where's the media? Media, which has an object, which has an M, which has the actual reference to the file. Yes? I don't know. I have to look at the API. Okay, good. Yes? Awesome. So, why? She's asking, why have this? Okay, so it turns out that in JavaScript, remember how I said objects have key-value pairs? Hang on, you don't miss, again. Okay, watch this. Forget that code there. Const A is an object, right? I told you that you can do something like name, surname. Fine. Okay. And that you can do a.name, which will read Joe, or you can do Mike, which will change Joe to Mike. Right? We know this. This is basic object stuff, which you all know because we're going to have a quiz and it's going to be lovely. Right? Okay, good. So, but here's the trick. What happens if you want the key to be something that has like spaces in it? What happens if you want the key to be not surname, but last name? This is not legal. You can't do that. But you can do this. That's legal. Yeah? Then what you can do is do A. Oh, I'm going to confuse you so much by showing you this. I'm not going to show you this. Okay, look. The point is, the way to read this out is like this. But now you're going to think, you're going to confuse that with arrays, because arrays use this, so forget. Who asked that question? Okay, listen. Another quick answer to your question. Why are they wrapped like this? Because there's a format called JSON. JSON, which is like a stringified version of an object. Imagine you take an object and you turn it into a string. And then you want to go from that string back to the object. Okay? The stringified version is called JSON. JavaScript Object Notation, JSON. Why do we turn objects into strings? Because we turn them into strings to send them through HTTP. Then when we get them, we put them back into objects. If you didn't get that, it's not going to be on a quiz, don't worry. But to answer your question, JSON as a format requires you to wrap keys with strings, with quotes. Okay. So, don't worry about any of that if you didn't understand it. It's okay. What matters is that you understand that we're getting back some data from the server, and it comes back as this data object. It kind of calls like it. Server bez object averdam. So, moral sync volts. Volts are JSON, that's it. It kind of calls up. Okay. So now we want to write a function that draws this data on the screen. Is data qui m'a écran libéré. Okay, so let's do it. So let's add it to this div. So const L. You know what? Let's do this. This is the JSON. Okay, but let's not render it as JSON, obviously. Let's render it as pictures. so we do let HTML is an empty string. Any questions so far? Okay, let I be 0. Any questions so far? Then we want to loop over data.items. There are 3 things you need to do when you're looping over an array. You make a variable. You make a while loop that checks a condition, usually if that variable is less than array.length, and you update the size of the variable, so eventually the while ends. Right? So let's do it. So we created the variable. We make the while loop. I is less than data.items.length.
I plus
And then inside a while, we change I to be I plus 1. Okay.
picture needs a just
Any questions so far? Yes, sir.
When we make the request in get JSON and then, so what it returns, so data is what it returns?
Correct. Yes. Data is the object that the server sent me back.
But what's that object?
Which object, John?
The second
S?
Yeah, what does that?
Ah, okay, look. Nice. Do you see how this has this question mark here? The question mark implies that after that we're going to get arguments to the server. Server-ը երբ որ ստանում է, չէ՞ request-ը։ Ինֆորմացիա պետք ասած լավ, եկար հասան, ապրես, բայց ինչ ես։ Նայ, ես քեզ ասում եմ, գնա engineering office։ Բայց որ հասնես, պետք է ասես ինչ ես ուզում, չէ՞։ Ասես նշիկ ջան, կտաս ինձ մատի փորի, չէ՞, ինքը տա քեզ մատի։ Այդ մատի թափե ինֆորմացիան, որ նշիկին պետք է տաս։ Մենք հավելյալ արգումենտ է, որը բացի եմքաստից, որ պետք է գնաս office։ Այս արգումենտներն են։ Ասում ես tag-ը, որ ես ուզում եմ, թող լինի սա։ Սա ընդամենը ուր գնաց։ Սա ինչ ես ուզում։ Բարձա չէ՞։ Okay. So now, huh?
What are the tag modes?
Tag mode? I don't know what tag mode is, to be honest. Կարող եք API-ը flicker-ի պետք է API-ը կարդան, and has the documentation կա, որը կասի արգումենտներու ինչ են ամեն մեկը։
copy paste
Հա, հաստատեց, հա, թե ենթադրեց։ Okay, հաստատեց, լսեցիք։ Մի հատ ավելի բարձր։
Այդ նայմա է սկսող ֆայլի օբյեկտների մեջ, keyboard-ների մեջ, թե ինչ է սուման գալի, այսինքն եթե text-ը տված լինի puppies, որի tag mode-ը կամ լինի any բոլոր բաների մեջ puppy ման կգա, կամ եթե tag mode-ը դրած լինի, ասենք places, ինքը def ման կգա, որի անունը puppy է։
It's an extra way of querying for what you want.
search
Yeah, it's an extra limitation. It's a filter. Yes, exactly. Yeah. So if you just want to find, exactly, because the problem is you can say like Ani, and Ani is a name, right, which refers to people and everything. But if you say places, it'll only give you places that are Ani, not people who are Ani. Right? It's a way of limiting the type. Very cool. All right. Are we running late? No, we're not. Okay. What are we doing? Okay, so we understand this part, right? We're just looping over the items. Այդ բազան, եթե ես քանը բարձ չի ասենք, որտեղ quiz-ում ծխվելու եք։
Դերից
Ինչ է բարձ չի։ You create a variable. You make sure as long as the variable is less than the length of the array, you change the variable by 1. This means this while loop will loop where I is 0, I is 1, I is 2, all the way until the last index of the array.
input arած search box-ում input arած քո տեքստով նկարներ է։
Why not less than or equal to?
Այդքան while է։
This expression ինչի ասնը։ Array մեջ 20 object կա, չէ՞։ Դե նշանակում է 0-ից մինչև 19-ը ինդեքսներ են, չէ՞։ Okay. Այսինքն մեզ պետք է 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 19-ը 0։ Okay, now that you're all panicking, this obvious to you?
Պապուլյարն ինչ է դիզայնը ասում եմ։
What does this do?
Loops over it.
For every loop, it gives me the item at that index. Now, from this item, let's do .media.m. This will give me the image, const image. Now, let's create the HTML. So the HTML, const local HTML is something like this. Image, source, sense me bug. Sadamage, the image. What will happen now if this code runs?
Ես մենակ վերջ տողաչ։
We didn't.
Այս HTML-ի արժեքը ինչ է, հայր ջան։ Empty text. Empty text. Այսինքն, եթե ես հիմա գամ ստեղ ու ինչ-որ search անեմ, dog. Empty text, ոչ մի բան։ Հիմա եկեք այդ HTML-ը հարստացնենք, ավելացնենք իրան։ HTML հավասար HTML plus local HTML։ Local HTML-ը ուղղակի մի հատ այս սրանից է, մի հատ։ Սա անընդհատ կպցնում է իրար ու վերջում ստանում է մի հատ երկար HTML text, որը բոլոր այդ իմիջները մեջ են։ Այդ ամբողջը վերցնում եմ ու գցում եմ մեջ։
So, like in the inside image source, why do you put additional quotes and then
okay, HTML, help me make an image in HTML. Forget JavaScript. HTML wants an image, sorry.
img source not equal to string and the link.
Generally in HTML you want to do this. Generally, this is the preferred way. And then here you write the HTTP, whatever, JPG, right? Հիմնականում սենց է։ Օրինակ նայ ստեղ, կամ նայ ստեղ։ Հա, նույն pattern-ն է։ Հիմա այս նույն զիբիլը վերցրու։ Ու դիստեղ, ասի ես հանեմ։ Դիստեղ կոդի մեջ։ Հիմա այս, որպեսի hard code չլինի, հանենք։ Ու իա տեղը տնենք image։ Բաժար։ Why հիմա, եթե search անեմ, there you go. Yes, the term verbal mythology. What? Seriously? The internet. Oh, how lovely.
Can you type memes?
What do you want me to type? Tell me.
Memes.
A meme?
Yeah.
Memes.
Science?
Yes.
Help Okay, this is, we can be here all day. The point is, do you guys understand how this works? Just stare at it for a bit and tell me. Yes?
So, we created a constant item, and then we said that had items and index with I, right? Like index changes all the time. So, shouldn't we create let item?
No. You see this? That's a block. When the block finishes, all the variables that have been created inside, the constants, the lets, everything, disappears. And the new one gets created the second time. Every block has its own... Okay, this is an important point. Okay. Seriously? This is AUA. Okay, love. Now, Amen blocker. Uni ida local. John, thank you, sir. You guys are awesome. Thank you. All right, look. Every time you make a block, this is not an object, by the way. I mean a block, like in an if statement, or a while loop, or a function, right? Imagine that being one block. Inside of a block, whenever you create something, like let A be 5, that gets stored in this whole object has memory where A is now 5. When this block ends, this memory is erased. So if you're in a while loop, when the block runs, let A be 5, right? The memory is created with A is 5. When the block ends, the memory is erased. You go back here and you restart a new block. And you create another new A. So in here, when we do const item, there is an item, a new one created every time you loop. Bob said. By the way, those of you who use var, it does not work this way. var has functional scope, which is why I'm suggesting for now, at least, you do not use var. If you don't know what var is, you don't have to know what var is. Don't worry. So const and let will work in this way. They are scoped to a block. Hayır, nasıl? Ne pauzer? Pauzer? Okay. Ուրիշ ինչ-որ հարցեր կան ես անպայման։ Ամեն բլոկը, այս համարվում է բլոկ, չէ՞։ Սա սկիզբն է, սա վերջն է։ Ունի իր լոկալ պատկերացու հիշողություն, սենց պատկերացու, հա։ Այդ հիշողության մեջ ինքը գցում է item image local HTML։ Երբ որ նա գալիս է նորից ցիկլով, նորից է կրկնվում, նոր բլոկ է ստեղծվում իր հիշողությունով։ Այսինքն երկրորդ անգամ մենք այն հին item-ը չենք օգտագործում, մենք նոր item ենք ստեղծում։ Եթե 20 անգամ պատտվում է, չէ՞, while-ը, 20 անգամ նոր item-ը ստեղծում։ Նոր, ոչ թե հին։ Դա համար let page։ Let-ը պետք կլինի, եթե այստեղ item ստեղծելուց հետո item-ին ասենք փոխում ենք ինչ-որ դարձնում ենք ուրիշ բան։ Այդ ժամանակ let-ը։ Բայց քանի որ չենք փոխում item-ը, պահում ենք որպես const։ Բազեն։ Հաջորդ։ Այս մասը։ Այս մասը։ Այս մասը։ Okay, one more time. Լավ, հայրեն բան է, հա, երևի։ Լավ, նայեք։ Document-ը object-ը, որը մեզ հնարավորություն է տալիս HTML-ի հետ խոսալ։ Մենք ասում ենք document ջան, գիտենք, որ դու HTML-ի լավ աղբերն ես։ Խնդրում եմ գնա ու գտի այն element-ը, որը ունի հետևյալ object, հետևյալ ID։ Ինքը գնում է HTML-ի մեջ քրքրում է, մանա գալիս գտնում է այդ element-ը, որը ունի դա, եւ հետո վերադարձում է մեզ, ու մենք գցում ենք այս փոփոխականի մեջ, այս constant-ի մեջ։ Այդքանը պարզ է։ Okay։ Հետո իրան որ ուներ, մենք իրանից ասում ենք, ավելացնում ենք event listener change ու function ենք տալիս։ Այսինքն ասում ենք այ element ջան։ Երբ որ դու փոխվես, այս ֆունկցիա կանչի։ Այդքանը պարզ է։ Հա։ Հա դե չէ։ Նորից որ մաս։ Ես մասը։ Okay. Last time and then Նայեք, document-ը object-ը։ Object-ի վրա կպած է մի հատ ֆունկցիա։ Մենք այդ ֆունկցիան կանչում ենք ու տալիս ենք մի հատ պարամետր, search box, որպես